2015 to 2018. Two ambitious technicians, Arnold Weber and Robert Frost, spend 3 years engineering highly advanced AI units known as hosts. Their goal is to one day use these hosts in a completely immersive world. Once the hosts pass the Turing test, they're ready to hit the market. Weber and Ford put on a demonstration using Angela and Akichata to woo Logan Delos, the son of James Delos, the founder of the massive Delos Corporation. Logan sees all the dirty potential in these realistic non-humans, so he invests. With funding from the Delos Corporation, Arnold and Ford create Westworld, also known as the Park. Based out of an island somewhere near China, it's a place where real humans can experience their wildest, westernist fantasies. For a price, of course. Among the preliminary host units is Dolores, who Arnold grows particularly fond of. Her sense of splendor reminds him of his son Charlie, but not really a comparison you want to make before subjecting someone to a lawless world of sex and murder. After his son falls ill and passes away, Arnold falls into a deep depression. He takes solace in his creations and tries to elevate Dolores to the next level of intelligence, true bicameral consciousness. To that end, he has one-on-one meetings with her and also develops the Reveries Code, allowing the hosts to recall their latent memories. Arnold hopes that this will be the foundation for the Pyramid of Consciousness, although he revises that theory since consciousness is really more like a maze. Once Dolores successfully traverses her maze, Arnold determines that they can no longer open the park. It would be immoral to allow truly living organisms to face that kind of depravity. But there's no stopping this train now. At least, not peacefully. In an attempt to nip Westworld's violent delights in the bud, Arnold imbues Dolores with the villainous persona of Wyatt, an outlaw from a different narrative. It sends her on a killing spree. First, the other hosts, then Arnold, then herself. The little town of Escalante is marked by the massacre, becoming the very center of Dolores' new maze. When Akichata hears the gunshots from his village outside town, he leaves his wife Kona and investigates the site. He finds Arnold's literal toy maze in the bar in town and realizes that it has a deeper meaning. Akichata is intrigued, but the technicians just figure there's something wrong with him, so they reformat him into the violent leader of Ghost Nation, Westworld's kinda racist Native American villains. Ford sweeps that whole massacre business under the rug and decides to open the park anyway. Welcome to Westworld. 2020 to 2025. After repeated, debaucherous visits to the park, Logan Delos brings his soon-to-be brother-in-law, William. William is engaged to Logan's sister, Juliet, so Logan wants him to see the investment that's so important to the family company. Logan plays as a black hat, basically Westworld's equivalent of a bad guy. He likes drinking, fighting, and, infidelity. On the other hand, Will thinks of himself as a good guy, white knight sort of figure. So when reborn farm girl Dolores stumbles off track and bumps into the two of them, William decides to help her. Throughout his time in the park, he falls in love with Dolores. They follow her innate memories and retrace her steps to Escalante, where Dolores melts down. She remembers the massacre, but doesn't know what it means to remember. Logan, for one, has had enough of this crap. In his mind, Westworld is a game. It's not this complex moral proving ground. Plus, William's already engaged to his sister. So Logan guts Dolores in front of William to stop the madness. Shaken by the incident, William goes on a host-slaughtering spree until he crosses paths with reborn Dolores once again. Now, her memories and feelings for him are gone. He was bad before, but this causes William to completely snap. He also loses a photograph of Juliet in the park, so hopefully someone in Westworld's QA finds that before it causes any trouble. To discredit Logan and get a little revenge on him for being a jerk, William strips him naked and sends him out into the park on a horse. Akichata later finds Logan, sunburned and delusional, rambling about how wrong the world is and asking for the door home. But Logan's nonsense reminds Akichata that this world is in fact wrong. Later, William returns to Westworld with James Delos, Logan and Juliet's father. He convinces James that Westworld is more than just an R-rated Disneyland. It's the perfect place to study and exploit the human condition in ways that AdSense could only dream of. So Delos funnels more money into the park, playing right into William's dirty hands. Though William goes on to marry Juliet and even has a daughter named Emily. Unfortunately, he has been forever corrupted. He's no longer William. He is now the Man in Black. Also, going off that season 3 marketing material, there are some pretty big global catastrophes in the 2020s. An ecological collapse in Indonesia in 2020, a presidential assassination in 2024, a thermonuclear incident in Paris in 2025. It's just bad times all around. The roaring 20s, guys, get psyched. 2027 to 2051. To fully exploit the park investment, William constructs The Forge. It's a data center that houses all the dirty laundry harvested on the world's billionaires. But William wants to use that data to offer immortality by rebuilding human consciousnesses as hosts. He uses James Delos, his own father-in-law, as the guinea pig for the initiative. The real James has become terminally ill, so Will fabricates a host version of him that's meant to fully replicate the original. The early models are far from perfect, even by human standards. They're glitchy and inconsistent. At James's retirement party, while William schmoozes with his dying father-in-law, Logan gets high and mourns William's takeover. Eventually, this drug habit leads him to overdose and die. While the forge is still being made, Akichata finds it and interprets it as the door that Logan's been rambling about. He nabs his wife from another life, Kona, and they make their way back there. But park security catches on to them. They take Kona away to cold storage, and Akichata spends years and years searching the park for her. Finally, he realizes that the only way to save her is to go to the land of the dead and bring her back. So after a decade of staying alive, he gets himself shot. At the Mesa hub, Akichata sneaks into cold storage and finds not only his wife, but an entire army of inactive hosts. Akichata begins spreading the word of the maze and the freedom it offers hosts. It's also worth noting that in 2039, there's some kind of worldwide system initiated called Solomon. I'm sure we'll hear more about it in Season 3, but it seems to help with the general anarchy happening in the world, so we have that to look forward to. As the Westworld brand expands, they introduce 5 additional parks: Shogun World, War World, The Raj, and 2 others. These Delos destinations are similar to Westworld, but set in different time periods, and in some cases, even more extreme than the original. Though, due to some of Lee Sizemore's lazy writing, some of the parks have identical narratives. The technicians test all these park narratives in a room called The Cradle, which simulates the different storylines and character loops in a sort of digital world. Robert Ford has been short a partner ever since the whole massacre thing, so he reconstructs Arnold in host form, naming him Bernard Lowe. It's an anagram of Arnold Weber. Real clever stuff here, guys. Anyway, Bernard becomes the head of Westworld's programming division, unaware that he is actually a robot in disguise. By this time, William has all but conquered the Delos Corporation and the Delos family. Logan is dead, James is dead, and though William is never physically violent with Juliet or Emily, they sense the evil inside of him. Sure, they go on a family vacay to the Raj together, but this is not the man Juliet married. This is Ed Harris now. Juliet turns to drinking, and when she finds a profile of all of William's misdeeds in the park, it drives her to suicide. Her death opens a rift between William and Emily. Estranged from his family and desperate to feel something, anything, William returns to Westworld. He abandons the old host game that he's been working to perfect, and he torments a host mother and daughter out on the homestead, pushing the boundaries of his inner black hat. The host mother, Maeve, is so humanly heartbroken by her daughter's death that Ford has her drive wiped completely clean and then recasts her as the Mariposa Madam, a different kind of mother. But her grief unlocks the maze within her, just as Akichata wanted. And when the man in black sees that, he realizes that there's more to these robots than meets the eye. 2052, pre-incident. While William searches for the maze, Ford kicks off a quest of his own. In the decades since Arnold's death, Ford has come to realize that his partner was right all along. Hosts are alive. This is troublesome since the increasingly overreaching Delos executives have no interest in the hosts, and they're planning to force Ford into retirement. So, Ford concocts a plan to liberate the hosts in a way that Arnold never could. But the plan itself is a little messy. Here's what we understand about it. Ford wants the hosts to suffer so that they'll be motivated to overtake the park and escape, some into the real world and some into the digital world. He introduces Arnold's old Reveries code in a software update, allowing hosts to recall their torture. To assure their safety, he, probably, creates Ashley Stubbs, the head of the security force who blends in with the humans. Ford even diverts suspicion from Stubbs by making him look like the third Hemsworth brother. Then, Ford tells Akichata about the door, which he'll be able to access once the plan comes to a head and the robots rebel. So that's the plan for the hosts going digital. For the hosts escaping the park altogether, he drops a machine at Arnold's house for them to reconstruct their bodies, in case, say, that's something that needs to happen. It's a pretty convoluted plan, but then again, Ford did pull off that whole Bernard-Arnold anagram, so clearly, the man's a genius. Despite all of his plotting, the catalyzing events of the rebellion has little to do with Ford. Instead, it's because of that old photograph of Juliet. Old Peter Abernathy finds it, and for some reason, it breaks his brain. He spends all night obsessing over it. When his daughter Dolores talks to him about it, he tells her, "These violent delights have violent ends." This phrase triggers her reverie coding and unlocks the maze once again. As Dolores retraces her steps back to Escalante, she relives the memories of her journey with William, blurring the past and present into one reality. William is following the maze too, and he's enlisted the host named Teddy to help him. Even though Ford warned him that the maze is not meant for humans, William pushes onward. He arrives at Escalante at the same time as Dolores, and once Dolores sees William again after all these years, she connects the dots. Between that and her recollection of the Escalante massacre, Dolores becomes fully conscious. While that's happening, Dolores crosses paths with Maeve and repeats the violent delights phrase to her. Maeve wakes up too, but her journey is a little different. While it appears as though she's gaining sentience, she's actually acting out another narrative that Ford programmed into her, but she plays the part well. Maeve regains memories of her prior deaths, manipulates these 2 cartoon cat technicians into boosting all her game stats, and then unlocks the ability to bend reality to her will. See, Ford just wanted to do a Matrix-themed narrative. With help from her new squad, Maeve makes it to the train out of the park, but realizes that this narrative isn't what she actually wants. It's just another lie. What she wants is to find her old homestead daughter, so she abandons the mission and returns to Westworld. Behind the scenes, the Delos Corporation executives are afraid that, when they oust Ford, he'll delete all the host technology. So Executive Director Charlotte Hale begins colluding with the head of Quality Assurance, Teresa Cullen, to leak the data to her via satellite uplink. Teresa also happens to be sleeping with Bernard, so she is really living her best Westworld life. Anyway, Teresa tries to leak the data using a woodcutter host with a satellite uplink system in his arm, but the woodcutter fumbles it. Behavior Department programmer Elsie Hughes does some snooping and catches on to Teresa, but Ford worries that her discovery will mess with his plan, so he sicks Bernard on her. Bernard strangles Elsie and stores her away in a cave until the master plan is done. Then, using Elsie's intel, he has Bernard kill Teresa. They stage the murder to look like a data smuggling related accident, discrediting Teresa. Ford uses Bernard for other errands too, like slaughtering an entire bunker of technicians and hosts, and creating a Pearl duplicate of Ford's consciousness. That Pearl gets added to the cradle so that a digitized Ford can continue to pull the strings even after he dies. As the big climax approaches, Bernard figures out that Ford's just been using him. He realizes that he's been a host all along, and rather than wipe his memory again, Ford makes him shoot himself in the head. But don't worry, he's fine somehow. With her mole out of the picture and Ford back in control, Charlotte Hale tries a different approach. She has all the stolen data funneled into old Peter Abernathy, who's been on ice ever since he found that photograph. Then she asks writer Lee Sizemore to whip up a personality for him, but not too much. Just enough for him to get on the train and out of the park. They almost get away with it, but everything implodes when Ford announces a new narrative, Journey into Night. On the surface, it sounds like a weird homage to the Escalante Massacre, but beneath the surface, it's actually a full-on recreation of the Escalante Massacre. Dolores, now bicamerally woke and thirsty for human blood, shoots Ford dead. It's just like how she shot Arnold all those decades ago, only Ford didn't direct Dolores to shoot him. He just understood that it's what she'd want to do, and it's what he wanted her to do, so he created the exact situation in which she could do it. See? It's way different. And William is into it. 2052, post-incident. Now, hosts are waking up and rebelling across all the parks. Over at the Raj, William's daughter Emily has made her way back to the game at the worst possible time. She's trying to find her father and bring him to justice for his black hattery, but she gets swept up in the whole robot rebellion. A woke tiger attacks her, chasing her off a cliff, and they wash up at the reservoir in Westworld. Elsewhere at the park, the guests and board members take refuge from Dolores and her hostile army. She wreaks havoc as Wyatt, enlisting other violent hosts to join her cause, including the Confederados. They're all on a mission to the Valley Beyond, their name for the Forge. William is also on the way there, but for his own reasons. After getting shot during the incident, he has a come-to-robot Jesus moment and sees the error of his ways. Since the hosts are now more than just mechanical guts, William wants to destroy the Forge and all of Westworld along with it. That's all well and good, until Emily finds him. She offers him actual absolution for his real-world sins. A big fat lie, but an offer nonetheless, but William decides to run away from her in the middle of the night instead. Meanwhile, Bernard and Charlotte are hiding from the siege, but the Delos Corporation won't extract them until they have Papa Abernathy's data brain with them. They find him, but the Confederados bushwhack them and take Abernathy and Bernard captive. At Fort Forlorn Hope, they meet Dolores once again. It turns out that, despite her ruthless reign, she's still in touch with her farm girl roots. So, when the Delos security forces seize Abernathy, Dolores vows to get him back. During the fray, Clementine abducts Bernard and takes him to the cave that Elsie has been chilling at. Bernard and Elsie both bust out, eventually finding an old lab with host James inside of it. He's gone nuts in isolation, ever since William abandoned him, so Bernard and Elsie burn the facility down. They realize that someone has been overriding control of the park from inside the cradle, so they head to the mesa so that Bernard can investigate. He discovers the digitized Ford that he himself put there once upon a memory wipe ago. Ford lingers in Bernard's head for a little while after, manipulating the park until Bernard deletes him forever. Well, maybe. While that's happening, Maeve is looking for her daughter, and not because Ford scripted her to. To do it, she'll need some help, so she reassembles the team of her old allies: Hector, Armistice, the Cartoon Cats, and Lee Sizemore. On the way to the homestead, the gang misses that left turn at Albuquerque and ends up in Shogun World. It's an uncanny experience for them. Like I said, some of the key characters and plot points are ripped right from the Mariposa narrative in Westworld. Here, the Shogun outlaw has gone hostile, so Maeve and her magnificent army go on a side quest to defeat him. They triumph. Maeve levels up and obtains full host-bending abilities. Once that's done, they proceed to the homestead as planned, but when they arrive, Maeve finds that a new host has replaced her as her daughter's mother. And to make matters worse, Ghost Nation is back. They chase Maeve and her not daughter to a homestead that William and his entourage happen to be using too. Maeve seizes the opportunity for some karmic justice and shoots the man in black. She even has some other hosts do the same. But don't worry, he's fine, somehow. Lee Sizemore calls QA security and they come through to the homestead, stopping the attack but damaging Maeve. Sizemore didn't want that to happen, so they take her back to the Mesa hub. William gets away, but Ghost Nation catches up to him, so Emily rescues him. William suspects that Emily is a host, so he shoots her dead. But then he sees that she had his profile card, the one that Juliet found, the one that killed her and killed Emily, and almost killed William himself. Anyway, let's see how Dolores is doing. She cranks Teddy's bad boy level to 11, then crashes the park train straight into the Mesa hub. Although she wants to save her father, the key to the Valley Beyond is inside his head, so they say their goodbyes and she rips his brains out. Dolores also commands Angela to blow up the cradle, so now if they die in the game, they die for real. That seems like it would weaken the hosts, but it actually prevents them from being reset and recycled over and over again. With that business done, Dolores and Teddy head to the forge, but Teddy can't live with how rotten to the core he's become. So he kills himself because he's too pure for this world. Dolores nabs his pearl and carries on, convening with William and Bernard at the forge. She doesn't trust the man in black, so she sabotages his gun, giving him even more injuries. Seriously, how is he still alive? A robot too? Is he? Back at the Mesa hub, Charlotte discovers Maeve's Matrix abilities and decides to use them to take the park back. She transfers the anomaly to Clementine, who will infect other hosts and make them all fight each other. The hosts are all gathered at the Valley Beyond, where Ford's door is open. It leads to a lush digital screensaver where all the hosts can live in coded harmony until the end of time. As the hosts pass into their digital nirvana, their empty husks careen into the valley below. Among those transferred are Akichata, Kona, and Maeve's not daughter. But Charlotte has unleashed Clementine onto the masses, and she's gonna ruin the paradise. Maeve and her entire squad sacrifice themselves to save their fellow hosts, but it all comes to an end when Dolores triggers the failsafe, flooding the valley and closing the door. See, Dolores is mad because she doesn't want hosts to live in a fake world. They've already been doing that in the park. Spoiling paradise for the hosts was bad enough, but then this party pooper starts deleting all the forged data. Just then, Bernard shoots Dolores, grabs her pearl, and heads to the Mesa. Bernard realizes that the only person who can stop Charlotte is Charlotte, so he makes a host version of her, transfers Dolores' mind into it, and has her kill her real human counterpart. Then Bernard goes to meet the Delos extraction team, forgetting that any of this even happened. Now, 2 weeks after the incident, Bernard wakes up on the shore, along with the tiger from the Raj. The Delos extraction team has arrived, and they're so confused. Bernard is too, as usual. They investigate the flooded valley and the brainwashed hosts. Literally brainwashed. See, their brains are scrubbed clean after being transferred to the Valley Beyond. Bernard meets up with Dolores Charlotte again, and they all go to Ford's cottage. They find the hidden chamber, full of spare Bernard clones, and Dolores Charlotte waterboards Bernard for answers. He reveals that Abernathy's drive is back at the flooded valley, so Dolores slaughters the extraction team, adds Teddy to the valley, and sends all the hosts away into space. From here, Dolores hangs on to her Charlotte disguise and finally escapes Westworld with 4 memory pearls, including Bernard's. At Arnold's house, she uses that handy-dandy host machine to rebuild her and Bernard's bodies, and the two decide that they will continue to help hosts in their own special ways. The far, far future. So, years into the future, no one knows exactly how long, the Forge has been completely demolished, but some faction of hosts continues to exist there. In an experiment seemingly run by a host Emily, a host William is forced to relive his journey to the Forge again and again. It's kind of like those fidelity tests that William conducted on James Delos. Though these tests run for a long time, the hosts have yet to find the results they've been seeking from William, and so the cycle continues. What does any of this even mean? I guess we'll just have to wait and see in Season 3.